This video is part of the Spring Flowers Open Challenge, and I will tell you a little bit more about it after the first project. Standing bead and flower wreath. I'm going to use this floral foam and reindeer moss, this wood tray, and the wood bead wreath. Those are all from Dollar Tree. Then I have this like paper leaf garland that I took off a couple of vertical signs from Dollar Tree. I have this pussy willow that they call blooming branch. And then I got the lavender at Temu. And then I had these square wood beads that I believe it was like a coastal garland. And the shape of the tray holds onto that wreath really well. I actually set it there and left it and, was doing stuff and came back and it was still sitting there. So I'm going to fill up the tray with the floral foam. And then I'm going to push it to the edges to give it room to hold the garland in the middle. Then I grab my drill and I do 3 pairs of holes for the zip ties that are going to hold onto the wood bead wreath. However, I do my zip tie holes in the north-south direction, but the zip ties need to come across the wood bead wreath, so it needs to be in the east-west direction. So I do come back and drill another hole to the side. And now my zip ties can hold onto it better. So I pulled it up from the bottom, all the way up and through, and then I looped it and pointed it back down through the hole. And then on the bottom, I just pulled it tight and then trimmed off the excess. And I do the exact same thing for the other zip ties. They're a little bit smaller. I use the black one for the middle there. That's the ones that you get from the automotive section at Dollar Tree. And then I use the little white zip ties on either side. Then I came in with some hot glue and tried to squish in the floral foam so it holds onto that wood bead wreath. Then I applied the little square feet with some wood glue, and that's just to make it sit even because of the zip ties coming through on the bottom. And it worked perfect. It was just the perfect size. Now I have this paper leaf. I'm going to call it a garland because I'm kind of using it like one, but it came off some other Dollar Tree signs. It was the letter O. It just kind of went around in a circle. And this is 2 of them that I attached to each other. And then wrapped it all the way around the wood bead wreath from one side to the other. Then I doused the middle that's sitting on the tray with a whole bunch of wood glue and covered that with the reindeer moss, and then proceeded to fill the whole tray with the reindeer moss. Now it's looking a little plain, and I do poke in a few little flowers off camera. I'll show you that in the final reveal. But for the flowers on the wreath, I just poke them in underneath that paper leaf garland, and since it's wired, it holds onto those flowers. And I wanted the flowers to come up the wreath on either side and then sort of meet at the top in the middle. So I did the same thing with the lavender and the pussy willow. And then I used a little bit of hot glue to make it not be so kind of wild and crazy. Just sort of like tack it down a little bit. I wanted to paint the word home in purple, but my purple acrylic paint was like totally dried up. It was a little tacky though, so I added some water and shook it. Got a little bit of a purple wash there and just sort of tinted the word home. I wish it was a little bit darker, but it's better than just leaving it raw wood, I think. And I just hooked the letter H into that part of the garland, but then glued the letter E, and I'll give you a good look at this during the final review. Jumping with a little bit more information about the playlist. It happens every month on the 1st, always a different theme. This month it's spring flowers. Our hosts are Amanda from 6 Kids and a Glue Gun, and then Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIY. Their channel links, as well as a link to the playlist, will be in my description box below, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video. Project number 2 is chalked flowers. So I took this Dollar Tree tag sign and I used my miter saw to cut the top part off. I also used my miter saw to cut a 45-degree angle on these wood dowels, and that's a saw there in the bottom left. And I like cutting 45-degree angles in my frames because I think it makes it look that much more high-end. And I highly recommend that brand of saw. And I think mine is the 10-inch. Now, I attempted to get all the paper off on that side, but I got frustrated and stopped. So I just flipped it over and started painting it black. I wanted to paint it black because in all the how-to videos I see for Chalk Couture, they're using a black background with a fancy white frame. So I decided to do my version of it. I stopped painting there because I realized there was still some sticky residue from the tag. So I waited for it to dry and then I sanded that middle part and smoothed it down, and then I came back with a second coat. Then I just sanded the edges of those frame pieces, and I painted them all white, and I tried to remember to leave the downside raw wood because I want to use wood glue to attach it. Now, Chalk Couture does have its own surface wax or clear surface wax, but I have this white wax. It's either Waverly or Folk Art. And I use it and I just sort of rub it on with a paper towel and then just keep rubbing it down till it's smoothed out. Now this is not the stencil that was on my table at the beginning of this project, because after trimming it and adding the frame, I realized it wasn't going to fit. So I've used this stencil once before. It's been about a year or so. And so I decided to sort of make my own version because the whole stencil doesn't fit, but you can sort of lift it and put it back down again. So that's what I'm doing. I used some nice sage chalk paste to do the leaves and the stems. And then I picked out a couple of colors that I thought would look good for flowers. And I would just like do one color and then lift it, and do another color and lift it. Then I realized that middle flower was just too dark. So the nice thing about chalking is you can wipe it off with just plain water, which is what I did. Then I took some of that dark chalk paste and used it to paint in the middle of those flowers. Then I made sure everything was dry so I wouldn't smudge it, and I came back in and redid that middle flower with a brighter color. And I'm so glad I changed it. I think it looks awesome. Now I grabbed my frame pieces and I did my 2 glue combination. So I put down some wood glue and then filled in the blank areas with the hot glue. Did the exact same thing for each piece. Then I came in with some of that lightweight spackle just to sort of fill in the cracks, make it look a little bit more high-end. And it takes like the smallest amount of spackle there. Now I did these air dry clay molds ahead of time, and I wasn't sure which ones I would like, but I settled on these smaller ones that look like corner pieces. It actually broke on me when I was handling it, so I just hot glued it and pressed it down into the other part, and it looks fine. You can't even tell. So I just did 2 of those. I sort of like that look. Then I came in with a little bit of an olive green and burnt umber, just to sort of define the edges of the frame and also to make those corner decorations pop. It came out fantastic, don't you think? Better look at the final reveal. And our last project today is a bunny with flowers. It's a decoupage project. I'm going to use these little flowers that I got from Temu. And I've been using them in lots of different ways, and I just love them. I have the Dollar Tree rope there I'm going to use for a border. I have this 4-image napkin that I got off eBay. And of course the sign came from Dollar Tree. I used my heat gun to loosen up the stickiness on that sticker. And just used my fingernail to get it off. And then I sanded it down with just a fine grit sandpaper because I didn't want to happen what I did in the Chalk Couture project. It took me a while to get this background off of this frame, and I finally had to whack it with a hammer. I was just worried I was going to break it, but it actually came out good. I have a few old rolls of shelf paper, and since I wasn't going to try and remove that paper, I decided just to cover it. And it's pretty enough. I'm just making sure it's even there at that one edge. Now I'm applying the Mod Podge, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but it was actually way too much. So I spread it over the whole back, and then I was like scooping up more and putting it back in the little bottle. So left that to dry, came back in with my napkin, and I ripped off one of the images and then used those uneven edges to help pull it apart. This was a 2-ply, so I only had to release the bottom ply. And then I like to feather the edges, like rip the edges. I feel like it gives you a better adhesion. So I made all the edges uneven, and then I came in with my Hippo heat press and very slowly went over the whole napkin, paying close attention to the edges. Now I did not put white down before I put the napkin down. A lot of people I know like to put white down to make the napkin pop, but I wasn't sure I wanted the napkin to pop. So I made the decision to keep it neutral. And then I just used that broken sponge brush to add the smallest amount of Mod Podge to seal it. Then I'm going to reapply the backing to the frame. There's a little lip on the frame there, so I kind of had to push it and sort of whack it into place. Now to finish it off, I'm coming in with that rope for the border. But I don't know if I did it off center or if it's just the way the napkin was, but there was more of a gap on one side than the other. So I sort of looked around my craft area and my eye hit this dried out baby's breath. So I used that to fill in the gap, and then you'll get a better look during the final reveal. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a big thumbs up. See you soon.